Black CEO kicked out of first class 30 minutes later. He owns the cabin. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Get out! You don't belong here! The words tore through the cabin like a blade of cold steel. Every passenger in row 2 froze. The flight attendant's voice wasn't just firm, it was loud, sharp, designed to humiliate. Her finger jabbed the air, landing squarely on one man, a tall black passenger sitting calmly in seat 2 amperes. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He just looked up, steady, eyes unwavering, while the entire cabin waited to see what would happen next. The captain stood beside her, arms crossed like a judge passing silent sentence. Behind him, 2 security officers loomed, their presence heavy, deliberate. And further down the aisle, a blonde woman raised her phone, pressing record. The red dot blinked like a witness that would not forget. Passengers whispered, "Did she just say that? Is he even supposed to be here?" A ripple of unease spread through first class, a place built for quiet luxury but now charged with raw tension. The man in seat 2 amperes, Marcus Carter, sat still, dressed in a plain black t-shirt and jeans. Nothing flashy, no status symbols, just presence, a presence some mistook for weakness. But this wasn't weakness. This was patience. This was power, waiting. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. The attendant leaned closer, her tone cutting deeper. "You need to move to economy, right now." She snatched his boarding pass from the armrest, holding it up like evidence. Then, with a swift, theatrical motion, she ripped it in half. Gasps erupted across the cabin. A woman in row 3 whispered, "Oh my God, she actually did it." The captain's jaw tightened. "Sir," he said, voice flat, "this seat is no longer yours. Cooperate, or we'll remove you." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. He let the silence hang, let the humiliation breathe, let every eye in the cabin settle on him. His calm was a storm contained. The passengers watched, torn between outrage and fear, as the man accused of not belonging in first class simply leaned back, unshaken. And in that silence, in that stillness, a truth was about to ignite. Marcus Carter didn't dress like first class. That was the point. Black t-shirt, dark jeans, no Rolex, no tailored suit, no entourage trailing behind. To most people, he looked like just another passenger trying his luck. To him, it was a test. For weeks, he'd been reading complaints, online reviews buried under PR spin, quiet posts from travelers who swore Horizon Airlines treated people differently depending on their appearance. Not race outright, but looks. Not the image of first class. Too casual, too plain, too black. The pattern was there, and Marcus wanted to see it with his own eyes. So on that June evening, he walked into Gate B14 in Chicago with a simple plan. No flash, no armor, no warning. Just himself, his ticket, and his patience. When his boarding pass scanned green, he knew he belonged. When he found his seat 2 amperes, a plush leather chair by the window, he felt the quiet satisfaction of proving the system right, at least for a moment. But then came the stare, the voice, the finger, the humiliation. Now, as he sat still under the weight of judgment, whispers crawled up and down the aisle. "Looks like economy is more his style. Maybe he snuck in. He doesn't belong here." Each word chipped at the silence, but Marcus didn't break. He'd seen this before at 25, in his first job interview after grad school, when the recruiter told him, "You're not the image we're looking for." He remembered the sting, the fire it lit. That rejection became fuel that built empires, that bought stakes in companies, that turned a boy with no seat at the table into a man who owned part of the airline flying above the clouds. The flight attendant didn't know that. The captain didn't know. The passengers didn't know. And that was exactly how Marcus wanted it. He leaned back slightly, anchoring himself to the seat as if daring anyone to pull him out. His calm was unsettling, like still water hiding a storm. Across the aisle, A woman in her 30s held up her phone, pretending to check messages but clearly recording. The red light pulsed like a heartbeat. Behind her, another passenger whispered into a mic, "This is discrimination. I'm filming too." The energy shifted fear mixed with outrage, anticipation with unease. The crew didn't notice, or maybe they didn't care. To them, Marcus was still nobody, just another man out of place. But to the silent witnesses, the ones watching through glass screens and phone cameras, something else was happening. A shift, a moment worth keeping. Marcus glanced at the captain, then at the flight attendant, still hovering inches from his face. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't plead. He let the tension stack like cards in a house ready to collapse, because he knew. He knew exactly who he was. And soon, so would everyone else in that cabin. The aisle narrowed. Authority filled the space. The captain stepped closer, his voice clipped. "Official, sir, comply or you'll be removed. We have VIPs who need that seat." His words echoed like a verdict, and as if on cue, a wealthy couple appeared from behind him, champagne glasses in hand, platinum tags around their necks. They looked every bit the airline royalty Horizon loved to parade. "Is this going to be a problem?" the man asked, smug, his wife smiling faintly as if the seat had already been theirs. The attendant nodded at them with assurance. "We're handling it," passengers murmured. A man 2 rows back whispered, "They're stealing his seat." Another shook his head, eyes fixed on the scene. Marcus didn't move. He tapped the armrest once, steady as stone. "This is my seat. 2 amperes. Paid in full." The attendant smirked. "Not anymore." And with a flourish, she slid the torn boarding pass into her pocket, as if erasing the truth made it disappear. Gasps rippled through the cabin. A woman near the window whispered sharply, "I saw his ticket scan green. She's lying." Her seatmate hissed, "Keep your voice down." But the phone in her hand didn't lower, it rose higher. The red record light caught the captain's eye. "Ma'am, no filming." His tone was commanding but shaky. Authority wavered when witnessed. Another voice cut through. "This isn't right." It came from a young trainee flight attendant at the galley, barely old enough to hide her nerves. She stepped forward, hesitating, then forced her words out. "His pass was valid. I saw it." The lead attendant snapped back, venom sharp. "Stay out of this, Mia." Mia froze, retreating, but not before her thumb tapped her phone. An audio recorder slipped silently into her jacket pocket. The cabin wasn't quiet anymore. It was a courtroom and everyone was a juror. A man in row 4 pulled out his phone. "This is discrimination," he muttered to the camera. His neighbor nodded, adding, "And they don't even care we're watching." Their words spread, their uploads tagged, their outrage alive. Marcus still hadn't raised his voice. He sat there, calm, centered, letting the storm circle him. Every insult, every order, every stolen glance stacked against the crew like evidence on trial. The captain leaned down, face inches from Marcus. "Last chance. Move or you'll be escorted off." Silence. Marcus's eyes didn't shift. His calm was defiant. The passengers leaned in, phones raised, hearts pounding, waiting for the next crack in the facade. And then, like a spark in dry air, the escalation flared. The attendant barked, "Security now." 2 uniformed officers stepped forward, hands hovering near his shoulder. The entire cabin held its breath, because the moment they touched him, the balance of power would shift forever. 2 officers stood inches away, waiting for the order. The attendant's finger still pointed like a spear, the captain's jaw locked, ready to snap. And Marcus Carter didn't move. He sat as if carved into the leather seat itself, steady, unshaken. The entire cabin leaned forward, expecting him to plead, to argue, to rise, but he gave them nothing, only silence. His eyes flicked once to the window, catching the reflection of himself, plain clothes, calm face, dark skin. To the untrained eye, he was out of place. But to Marcus, this was familiar, tout familiar. He remembered being 23, walking into a bank with a down payment for his first property deal. The loan officer looked him over and said, "High risk, not your lane." He remembered at 26, being told by investors he didn't have the image for leadership. He remembered every room, every rejection, every moment someone mistook his silence for submission. And now, here he was again, seat 2 amperes, first class, treated like an intruder. But Marcus had learned something across the years. Power doesn't shout, it waits. And right now, His silence was louder than anything in the cabin. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. A woman whispered, "Why isn't he saying anything?" A man answered, "Because he doesn't need to." Their phones stayed raised, capturing every second. The lead attendant grew restless, her authority cracking. "Sir," she snapped, louder now, "if you don't move, these officers will move you." Still nothing. Marcus's hands rested loosely on the armrests, palms open, as if surrendering. But his posture said the opposite. He wasn't yielding. He was holding the line without lifting a finger. The captain leaned down, his voice sharp. "This is your final warning." The cabin went still. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade, as if the aircraft itself was listening. And Marcus finally spoke. Quiet, level, deliberate. "This is my seat." The words weren't shouted, they weren't dramatic, but they cut through the air like a verdict. The attendant scoffed. "Not anymore." Marcus looked at her, his calm unbroken. "You think silence means weakness. It doesn't. It means I'm giving you every chance to stop." The woman recording in row 3 whispered, almost trembling, "Oh my God." Another passenger leaned to his seatmate. "He's not afraid. That's scarier than yelling." The officers hesitated. Their training told them to act, but their instincts told them something else. This man wasn't ordinary. Marcus straightened slightly, his voice still even, still calm. "You don't know who you're speaking to. Not yet, but you will." The stillness that followed wasn't empty, it was charged, like thunder waiting inside a cloud. And the crew, for the first time, began to look uncertain. Because sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one who doesn't raise his voice. The silence broke first from the back. I saw his ticket scan green. A woman in row 4, her phone raised high, spoke with a voice louder than she intended. Heads turned toward her. Her face flushed, but she didn't lower her arm. "He belongs in that seat." Murmurs swept the cabin like wind through tall grass. She saw it? Wait, his ticket was real? Then why are they pushing him out? The lead attendant whipped her head around. "Ma'am, stay out of this." But the damage was done. Witnesses weren't silent anymore. Across the aisle, a man in a gray blazer leaned forward. "She's right. I watched it too. His boarding pass scanned clean. You can't just erase him." Phones lifted higher, cameras angled sharper. The cabin became a gallery of glowing screens, each one capturing proof, each one a window for the world outside. The captain's voice cracked with impatience. "Everyone sit down. This is procedure." A younger voice interrupted. From the galley, the trainee Mia stepped forward again, trembling but resolute. "Sir, I saw the log. His name was in the system. They deleted it after." The lead attendant snapped, furious. "Mia, one more word and you're out of uniform." But the passengers had already heard. A murmur rose, this time not confusion but outrage. "They deleted his name? That's fraud. They can't just do that." The energy in the cabin shifted. What began as whispers of doubt turned into a tide of voices. One man in row 6 stood up halfway, his phone recording. "This is discrimination. We all see it." Marcus remained still, his eyes steady, his silence anchoring the storm. He didn't need to say a word, the room was speaking for him now. The lead attendant, cornered by the chorus, raised her voice to drown them out. "Security, remove him now." But the officers hesitated. Their gaze flicked from Marcus's calm posture to the sea of passengers staring, filming, judging. This wasn't removal anymore. This was spectacle. This was risk. Mia's voice trembled, but she spoke again. "If you take him out, I'm sending everything I recorded to the board." Gasps rippled through the rows. The crew froze. And Marcus, finally breaking his silence, leaned forward just slightly. His words, low, precise, carried through the charged air. "You see? The truth always finds a witness." The cabin went still again, not because the conflict ended, but because everyone knew it had only just begun. The aisle vibrated with tension. The officers waited. The passengers whispered louder. The air inside first class was no longer luxury, it was trial by fire. And then the captain snapped. His voice cut through the murmurs like static on a bad radio. "He doesn't belong here, not dressed like that, not in first class." The words hit harder than the order to remove him. They weren't just procedural, they were personal. Judgment dressed as authority. Gasps scattered like sparks. A man in row 3 muttered, "Did he just say that out loud?" A woman near the galley whispered, "That's not policy, that's prejudice." The lead attendant, emboldened by the captain, stepped closer to Marcus, her tone dripping with disdain. "This is for premium guests. People like you trying to sneak in ruin it for everyone else." Her words weren't quiet. She wanted the cabin to hear them, to brand him a fraud in front of strangers. Phones tilted higher. Fingers tapped screens faster. Comments and captions were already flying beyond the cabin walls. Marcus sat steady. He didn't blink. His silence wasn't compliance. It was a mirror, forcing their words to reflect back at them. Mia's voice cracked, but she spoke again, louder this time. "Stop lying. His pass was valid. I saw it. You tore it up." The lead attendant spun on her, fury in her eyes. "You're done here. You're finished." But before she could silence Mia, another voice rose from the back, a passenger, firm and clear. "She's telling the truth. I saw it too." Momentum shifted again. The crew was no longer just facing one silent man. They were facing a cabin that was awake. The captain tried to seize control. "This is FAA protocol. We make the rules in the air." But the man with the phone in row 4 shouted back, "No, you don't make the rules, you broke them." The energy swelled, a wave ready to crash. The lead attendant leaned down, inches from Marcus's face, and hissed the words like venom. "You're a fraud. You don't belong here. You never will." It was no longer about a seat. It was about erasure, about stripping him of place, of dignity, of existence in this cabin. Passengers froze, recording every syllable. The officers shifted uneasily, caught between orders and conscience. Mia whispered, "This isn't just wrong, it's dangerous." And Marcus finally exhaled, steady, deliberate, the faintest shadow of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Because he knew, with every insult they spoke, they were digging their own grave. The insult still hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. "You're a fraud. You don't belong here. You never will." The cabin went silent. Phones stayed raised, their red lights blinking like watchful eyes. Even the engine's hum seemed to recede, replaced by the heavy pulse of collective outrage. Then the line was crossed. The lead attendant reached down and snatched Marcus's boarding stub, the torn half she had kept as her trophy, and tossed it into the aisle like trash. It slid across the carpet until a passenger's shoe stopped it. Gasps rippled again. She threw it away. This is insane. But it didn't stop there. The captain motioned to the officers, voice flat, final. "Remove him, now." The two security men stepped forward. One placed a hand on the headrest, the other reached toward Marcus's armrest. The motion was slow, deliberate, a rehearsed choreography of power. Passengers shifted in their seats. Some rose halfway, phones aimed squarely at the confrontation. A woman whispered, "Don't touch him. Don't you dare." Mia, her hands trembling, spoke louder than before. "Stop. He hasn't done anything wrong." The lead attendant cut her down with a glare. "This is protocol. Sit down." But the words rang hollow, because the moment the officer's hand hovered inches from Marcus's shoulder, the truth was undeniable. This wasn't protocol, it was punishment. And Marcus sat still, anchored, his eyes locked forward, unflinching. The officer's fingers brushed his sleeve. That touch small, fleeting was the spark. From row 3, a passenger shouted, "We're recording everything." From row 6, another rose. "This is abuse. He paid for that seat." The officers hesitated, caught in the crossfire of voices. The cabin had become a theater, and they were center stage. The captain barked again, more desperate this time. "Escort him out." And Marcus finally turned his head, his voice low but sharp enough to slice the air. "Touch me again, and you'll answer to more than this cabin." The officer froze, his hand hovered, then pulled back ever so slightly. Something in Marcus's tone, not loud, not threatening, but absolute, unsettled him. The passengers sensed it too. The silence that followed wasn't submission. It was a warning. The lead attendant scoffed, trying to mask her unease. "Empty threats. You're nothing but a faker in a stolen seat." But her words landed differently this time. Not conviction, desperation. And Marcus's faint smile deepened, almost invisible, but present, because now they had crossed the line. And once the line is crossed, there is no going back. The cabin was trembling with tension. Phones raised, passengers whispering, officers stuck in hesitation. And Marcus Carter sat unmoved, like the calm center of a storm. He reached slowly into his pocket. Not frantic, not defensive controlled. He pulled out his phone, black case, No logos, no flash. Just a tool, plain and quiet. The lead attendant sneered. What now? Calling someone to back you up? Her laugh was thin, brittle, already cracking. Marcus tapped once, then pressed the phone to his ear. His voice was low, deliberate, but the cabin carried it like gospel. Rachel, log this moment. Timestamp. Begin protocol. Gasps rippled again, softer this time, confused but heavy. Passengers leaned in. Who was Rachel? What protocol? The lead attendant rolled her eyes. Pathetic. You think some friend on the ground can save you? But Marcus ignored her, his voice steady. Record every second. Archive video streams. Cross-check with passenger manifests. I want redundancy across systems. The words weren't for the crew. They were for someone who knew exactly what he meant. From the phone came a voice, crisp, professional, unmistakably prepared. Understood, Mr. Carter. The system is live. The cabin still. Not Carter, sir. Not Marcus. Mr. Carter. The lead attendant faltered. Her smirk wavered. The captain frowned, trying to mask the sudden shift in weight. Marcus leaned back again, his tone calm as ever. Continue logging. Notify board liaison. Flag this crew for review. The passengers exchanged glances. Did she just call him Mr. Carter? Who is this guy? Board liaison. What does that mean? Phones zoomed closer, capturing his every word. The red dots blinked faster, streaming live, unstoppable. The captain tried to recover, snapping. Empty words. You're bluffing. This is my aircraft, and I make the rules. But the words rang weaker now, because the balance was shifting, cell by cell, witness by witness, second by second. Mia, the young trainee, stepped forward again, this time firmer. He's not bluffing. Look at him. He doesn't need to. The lead attendant spun on her, voice cracking. Mia, shut your mouth! But no one was listening to her anymore. They were listening to the silence of Marcus Carter, the weight of his composure, the certainty in his tone. He ended the call with a simple line, soft but commanding. Keep the line open, this is only the beginning. And as he set the phone on the armrest, the cabin wasn't just tense anymore, it was shifting. Because power, real power, had just entered the room. The cabin was balanced on a knife's edge. The crew clung to procedure. The passengers clung to outrage. And Marcus Carter, silent, steady, finally chose to move the blade. He picked up the phone again, this time not lowering his voice. Rachel, he said calmly, patch me through to corporate. The line clicked. A woman's voice, sharp and professional, filled the cabin through speaker mode. Mr. Carter, the board has been notified. Do you want me to brief the chairman? Gasps erupted. Phones shook in passengers' hands as they struggled to steady their recordings. The captain's face drained of color. Board, he muttered, barely audible. Marcus's gaze swept across the aisle, slow and deliberate, until it landed on the lead attendant. His words were even, not angry, not rushed. You thought I didn't belong here. But the truth is, this cabin, this aircraft, this airline, you work for me. The words landed like a gavel. The silence that followed was heavier than the engines themselves. The lead attendant stammered, That's impossible. You're lying. Marcus leaned forward, his presence filling the space. Check the shareholder registry. Horizon Airlines, 25% owned by Carter Group Holdings. My signature is on every quarterly report. My vote decides the chair you think protects you. Phones captured every syllable. Passengers whispered in disbelief. He owns part of the airline. Oh my God, he's their boss. This is insane. Mia, the trainee, spoke loud enough for all to hear. I knew it. That's why he didn't flinch. He never needed to. The captain's authority collapsed in his posture. His arms, once crossed in defiance, now hung stiff at his sides. His lips pressed into a line, as though words had betrayed him. The lead attendant's face blanched. She tried to stand taller, but her knees betrayed the tremor. You can't just... Marcus cut her off, his voice calm, final. I already have. The passengers applauded, some clapping quietly, others bursting into cheers. The red recording lights multiplied, flashing like stars across the cabin. And in that moment, the man they tried to erase, the man they called a fraud, who didn't belong, became undeniable. The reveal wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Because true power doesn't shout. It simply speaks, and the world listens. The cabin erupted. Not in chaos, but in clarity. Passengers clapped. Some rose from their seats, phones aimed squarely at the crew who just minutes ago thought they held all the power. The quiet, polished air of first class had become an arena, and the verdict was unanimous. You just humiliated your own boss. I can't believe this happened in front of everyone. This video is going to explode online. The captain's jaw slackened, his posture deflating as if gravity itself doubled. His once commanding presence shrank into the corner of the aisle. The officers who had hovered near Marcus now stepped back, their eyes darting away, unwilling to be seen as enforcers of a collapsing order. The lead attendant froze, her hands trembling. She opened her mouth, searching for words, but nothing came. The arrogance, the smirk, the superiority it drained from her face like color from a fading photograph. Passengers zoomed their cameras closer. Every flinch, every bead of sweat, every tremor of panic was captured in high definition. Mia, the young trainee, stepped forward, her voice stronger now, no longer cracked by fear. This isn't the first time. I've seen them do this before. Gasps swirled again. A man recording whispered into his phone, "A whistleblower. Oh, this is over for them." The lead attendant snapped, desperate. You can't just say that." But her voice was drowned out by the sound of clapping, louder this time, swelling from row 3, row 5, row 7. A woman stood, tears in her eyes. Finally, someone stood up. The crew looked cornered, like animals caught in their own trap. Every second that passed was another nail in the coffin of their authority. The captain tried one last reach for control. "Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats. This is still my aircraft." But the words were hollow. No one sat down. No one obeyed. Phones remained raised, witnesses unblinking. And Marcus Carter, he didn't move. He didn't have to. The collapse was happening without a single gesture from him. One by one, the passengers began speaking not whispers anymore, but declarations. You tried to erase him. You lied about his ticket. You called him a fraud. Each voice was a blow, and the crew buckled under the weight. The lead attendant's eyes glistened with panic. The captain's lips quivered. Even the officers shifted uneasily, their confidence fractured. And at the center of it all sat Marcus, calm as ever, watching the world tilt toward justice. The cabin no longer belonged to the crew. It belonged to the truth. The applause faded into silence, the kind that waits for judgment. All eyes turned back to Marcus. He hadn't raised his voice once, but everyone knew what was coming. He picked up his phone again, pressing one button. The line reconnected instantly. "Rachel," he said evenly, "mark this incident for immediate action. Effective now. Suspend this entire crew." The words dropped like a hammer. Gasps filled the cabin. The lead attendant's eyes widened, her face draining pale. "What? You can't—" But her protest was cut short by the voice on the phone, calm and official. "Confirmed, Mr. Carter. Crew IDs flagged. System access revoked. Processing now." The captain fumbled at the device, clipped to his uniform. A small beep answered him. Red light. Denied. His eyes darted in disbelief. He tried again, red, locked out. The lead attendant pulled at her badge, swiping desperately against the cabin panel. Another denial, a harsh buzz that echoed like mockery. No, this is a mistake," she stammered. The officers exchanged nervous looks. They hadn't lost access, but they knew the tide had turned. Passengers recorded everything, whispering with astonishment. He just shut them out. "They're fired right now." I've never seen power move this fast." Marcus's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You thought humiliation was policy. Consider this. Your final lesson accountability is—" Mia stepped closer, her voice breaking but resolute. "They deserve this. I've watched them do it again and again. Always the same faces, always the same cruelty." Marcus nodded once. "Not anymore." The lead attendant's hands shook as she reached for the captain. "Say something! Stop this!" "Oh." But the captain had no words. His authority was gone, stripped as quickly as a badge's color turning red. He slumped back, defeated. The cabin filled not with applause this time, but with something heavier, the quiet realization that justice had just unfolded in real time. Marcus set the phone down gently, like closing a case. He didn't gloat, didn't smile. He simply looked around the cabin, eyes steady, presence unshaken. Flight crews are meant to carry passengers safely, not strip them of dignity. not erase them. Tonight, you forgot that. The weight of his words sank deep. Phones captured every syllable. Passengers held their breath, knowing they were witnessing more than just a confrontation. It was a reckoning. And for the crew, there would be no appeal. Because justice, once spoken, cannot be revoked. The cabin was still. The lead attendant stood frozen, her badge useless, her authority dissolved. The captain sat back, silent, eyes on the floor. The officers who once hovered with confidence now lingered in the aisle, uncertain, diminished. And Marcus Carter remained seated in 2 amperes, steady as ever. He hadn't shouted, he hadn't begged, he hadn't moved more than he needed to. Yet the balance of the entire aircraft had shifted around him. Passengers whispered, then fell quiet. They wanted to hear what he would say. The phones stayed raised, lenses trained, recording every breath. Marcus looked around the cabin, his gaze sweeping across every witness, every face, those who doubted, those who spoke, those who stood. Finally, he let the silence linger long enough for the weight to settle. Then he spoke, calm, final. You thought I didn't belong in first class. But the truth is, I don't need first class to belong. Dignity doesn't come from a seat. It comes from who you are. And who I am is the reason this airline still flies. Gasps again, softer now, reverent. Phones trembled in hands. The truth had been spoken, not as revenge, but as clarity. He leaned back, voice steady, eyes locked forward. Remember this moment. You don't erase people like me. Not anymore. Not ever again. The cabin erupted not in chaos this time, but in applause that rolled like thunder. Some passengers stood, clapping until their palms stung. Others simply nodded, eyes glistening, whispering, finally. Mia, the young trainee, stepped forward with tears in her eyes. She whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "Thank you." Marcus nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Not for thanks, not for victory, just acknowledgement. Then he turned his eyes back to the window, the sky beyond the glass, calm and endless, like himself. The lead attendant sank into an empty seat, her career dissolved before she even touched the ground. The captain stared at his useless badge, the red light mocking his silence. But Marcus Carter needed no celebration. He didn't film, he didn't gloat. He simply sat in 2 amperes, as he had from the beginning, unmoved. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And when it does, the world cannot unhear it.